In the hush of an early morning, before the world stirs into motion, there is a stillness that speaks. It is not the silence of nothingness, but the presence of something deeper, an invitation to pause and notice what we usually overlook. This stillness carries with it a whisper, a memory of who we once were before the world taught us to rush. For many, this moment is fleeting. The noise of responsibility, of regret, of unfinished conversations floods in. But beneath all of that, the whisper remains, "You are not your pain." A young man once walked a long, dusty path in search of peace. His days were filled with striving, climbing ladders, chasing approval, filling every silence with sound. And yet, in the quiet moments between victories, he felt empty. Not because he lacked success, but because none of it seemed to last. Every accomplishment faded too fast. Every joyful moment passed before he could hold on to it. He was living in fear of impermanence, without realizing that his resistance was what hurt the most. In a small village far from the noise of cities, there lived an old monk who tended a garden. People came from miles away just to sit near him. They said his silence felt fuller than most people's words. One day, the young man arrived, worn from his journey. He sat down beside the monk and asked, "Why do I feel so restless even when I have everything I thought I wanted?" The monk smiled softly and pointed to a flower in bloom. "Does the flower grieve because it will wither?" he asked. The young man was silent. The monk continued, "Its beauty lies in its impermanence. If it were forever, we would stop seeing it." This puzzled the young man. But doesn't that mean everything good is destined to be lost? The monk picked up a leaf and let it fall gently. "Loss is not the end," he said, "but part of a rhythm. We suffer not because things change, but because we expect them not to." That night, the young man lay beneath the stars and thought of his childhood dog, now gone. He thought of the laughter of friends he no longer saw. He remembered the last hug from his grandmother and how tightly she held him without knowing it would be their final embrace. Each memory, once sharp with sadness, now glowed with quiet warmth. They hadn't been lost. They had become part of him. In Buddhist teachings, the truth of anicca impermanence is not meant to frighten, but to free. Everything changes. The seasons, our moods, even the pain we think will never end. When we stop fighting this truth, we begin to heal. The wound does not close by force, but by surrendering to the care of time. A woman once lost her child in a tragic accident and came to the Buddha with her broken heart. She asked him to bring her son back. The Buddha did not argue, did not preach. He gently told her to find a mustard seed from a home untouched by death. She searched every door in the village, only to return empty-handed. Every family knew grief. She realized then that her pain was not unique, but human. She wept not in despair, but in understanding. And in that moment, she began to heal. We often carry pain as if it were a badge of honor or a burden to be punished by. But what if pain is not asking to be carried, but to be seen, to be understood, and then gently released? Like clouds parting to reveal the sky, healing begins when we face what we fear, that nothing stays the same. And yet, this is not a tragedy, it's a gift. If the cherry blossom bloomed forever, we'd stop noticing its grace. If every note of a song lasted endlessly, it would lose its music. It is because moments pass that they shine. So too with life. When we accept impermanence, we stop clinging to what is fading and start embracing what is. This moment, this breath, this heartbeat. And in doing so, we open the door to peace, not the kind that erases pain, but the kind that holds it with compassion. An old proverb says, "The wound is the place where the light enters." And perhaps, just perhaps, impermanence is not the thief, but the teacher. It shows us how to love more deeply, to live more presently, and to let go with grace. There was once a carpenter who had built houses for others his entire life. Each plank he hammered, each wall he raised, was a gift he gave the world. But in his later years, his hands began to shake, and his eyes lost their sharpness. He found himself making mistakes, small ones at first, then larger ones. And with each error, a piece of him chipped away. He began to feel like a burden, like his usefulness had expired. So he withdrew. He stopped building, stopped showing up. He believed that if he could no longer produce, he no longer mattered. One day, a young apprentice found him sitting alone beside a half-finished bench. The apprentice asked, "Why did you stop?" The old man replied, "Because I'm no longer perfect. I'm no longer needed." The apprentice didn't respond with pity. He didn't argue or protest. Instead, he picked up a chisel and sat beside him. In silence, they carved. The lines weren't straight, the edges not smooth, but the bench took shape anyway. And when they finished, they sat together on it. The apprentice smiled and said, "I didn't come for a perfect bench. I came to be with you." In our culture of constant achievement, we often measure our worth by what we can do, how much we produce, how quickly we recover, how strong we appear. But healing doesn't obey the clock. It has no deadline. It moves like a tide, sometimes receding, sometimes rushing forward, but always alive. Many people come to healing expecting closure, a clean break from pain, as though grief or trauma could be neatly packed away like an old coat. But healing rarely looks like that. It's messy. It repeats itself. Some days you feel whole. Other days it's like you never started. And both are part of the path. There's an old Zen story of a man riding a horse that's galloping wildly. Someone shouts, "Where are you going?" The man replies, "I don't know." Ask the horse. That horse is our mind, racing with thoughts, memories, fears. We think we're in control, but often we're just being dragged. Healing begins when we gently take the reins, not to control the horse, but to sit with it, understand it, and ride alongside it with kindness. Sometimes healing isn't fixing, it's witnessing. It's being the calm eye in the middle of a storm. It's sitting beside your younger self and saying, "I see you. I know you hurt, and I'm not going anywhere." We may carry scars from words that were never said, apologies never received, or choices we regret. But a scar is not a sign of weakness. It's proof that you survived, that your body or your soul, despite everything, chose to continue. In Buddhist teachings, compassion is not just for others, it must be turned inward. Karuna, the compassion that understands suffering, teaches us to stop punishing ourselves for not healing fast enough. The heart, when broken, doesn't need to be forced closed. It needs to be held open so that light, love, and breath can move through it. A woman once kept a broken pot beside her window. When asked why she hadn't replaced it, she smiled. Because every morning, when the sun rises, it shines through the crack and paints the wall with gold. She didn't see the flaw. She saw the beauty made possible because of the flaw. You too are that pot, not broken, transformed. You don't need to be perfect to be precious. You don't need to be healed to be whole. So sit with yourself, not with urgency, but with patience, like a gardener tending soil after a long winter. The seed of healing is already within you. It just needs time, water, and a little sunlight. And remember, as one quiet saying goes, you don't have to be blooming to be growing. There once was a man who carried a heavy stone wherever he went. It was said that this stone held all his worries, fears, and regrets. Each day he felt its weight grow heavier, and his shoulders stooped under the burden. Passers-by offered help, suggesting he set the stone down, but the man feared that if he did, his troubles would overwhelm him. One evening, exhausted, he came upon a river. Its water flowed steadily, never clinging to any pebble or branch. Watching this, the man felt a strange peace wash over him. Without thinking, he placed the stone into the river. To his surprise, the water did not hold the stone, but carried it gently downstream. Relieved, the man sat by the riverbank and noticed something else. Though the stone had gone, the river continued on its path, calm and strong. He realized that his burdens, too, could be released without losing himself. Life is much like that river, constantly moving, never grasping. When we cling to pain, anger, or past hurts, it is as if we are trying to hold water in our hands, inevitably slipping away and causing suffering. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering. This does not mean we should not care, but that holding too tightly to what is fleeting only deepens our pain. When we learn to let go, not in resignation, but in trust, we create space for healing and growth. The old Chinese proverb, "When the wind passes, the grass bends," reminds us that flexibility is strength. In the face of hardship, to bend without breaking is a form of resilience born from acceptance. In modern life, many feel trapped by their worries, unable to imagine release. But healing begins the moment we stop carrying stones that were never meant to be ours to bear. It begins with a single breath, a moment of surrender, and the courage to trust the flow. So when life feels heavy, remember the river. Let the burdens fall. Allow the current to carry you toward peace. A teacher once gathered her students beneath a large ancient tree. She held up a simple clay bowl, cracked and imperfect, and asked, "What do you see?" The students pointed out the flaws, chips, cracks, uneven edges. The teacher smiled and said, "This bowl tells a story. It has been through fire, shaped by hands, and carries the marks of its journey. Yet it still holds water, still serves its purpose." She then shared a teaching from the Buddha about dukkha, the universal truth of suffering and imperfection. "We all carry cracks," she said gently. "It is not in hiding them, but in embracing them that we find wholeness." One student, struggling with feelings of failure, asked, "But how do I stop feeling broken inside?" The teacher replied, "By seeing your cracks not as flaws, but as places where light and compassion enter. Healing is not becoming perfect, but learning to live fully with what is." In our fast-paced world, the pressure to appear flawless can be overwhelming. Social media, work, and even family expectations create mirrors that reflect only a polished image. But real healing comes from authenticity, the courage to show our scars and be accepted as we are. An old proverb says, "Fall 7 times, stand up 8." Resilience is born not from never falling, but from rising each time with more understanding. To escape impermanence is impossible. It is the very fabric of existence. But to face healing slow, uneven, often painful, is to engage deeply with life itself. It is a sacred process, like pottery shaped by fire, where brokenness becomes beauty. So rest now in this truth: your journey, with all its cracks and wounds, is precious. Let your heart open gently. The light is waiting. Beneath a sky heavy with storm clouds, a traveler sought shelter in a humble monastery perched on a quiet hill. The monks welcomed him with serene smiles, inviting him to sit and share his troubles. "I am burdened by the fear of change," the traveler confessed. "Everything I hold dear seems to slip away like sand through my fingers. I cling, yet the harder I hold, the more I suffer." An elder monk nodded, then recited a verse from the Dhammapada. "All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering." The traveler listened as the monk spoke softly about the nature of impermanence, not as a threat, but as a doorway to freedom. When we accept that nothing lasts, we stop fighting the current and begin to flow with it. In the days that followed, the traveler learned to observe his thoughts and feelings as passing clouds, neither clinging to joy nor resisting sorrow. Each breath became an anchor, each moment a chance to begin anew. He realized that healing is not about erasing pain, but allowing it to transform into understanding and peace. An old saying whispered through the monastery gardens: "The bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists." The traveler's heart, once rigid with fear, softened. He found courage in surrender and strength in letting go. As the storm clouds parted, light poured into the room, illuminating a path not of escape, but of facing healing step by step, breath by breath. In a quiet village nestled between mountains, there lived an elderly woman, known for her gentle smile and calm presence. People came to her seeking advice, comfort, and sometimes just the warmth of her company. She spoke little, but listened deeply, her eyes reflecting a wisdom born of many seasons. One day, a young mother arrived, weary from sleepless nights and endless worries about her child's future. "How do I find peace when everything feels so uncertain?" she asked. The elder took her hand and shared a simple story. Once a farmer planted seeds in his field. Some sprouted quickly, others took their time. One season a storm destroyed much of his crop. Yet the farmer did not despair. He understood that nature's ways were beyond control. Instead, he nurtured what remained and prepared for the next planting. She continued, "Our lives are like that field. We sow hopes and dreams, but not all grow as planned. Impermanence touches everything. When we accept this, we create space for healing." Drawing from Buddhist teachings, she explained the practice of mindfulness, being present without judgment. When we stop fighting the flow of change, we find a stillness within, a refuge where healing can quietly unfold. The young mother felt a gentle calm settle over her heart, as if the weight she carried had lessened just by being seen. A whispered saying lingered in the air: "The gem cannot be polished without friction, nor man perfected without trials." In embracing impermanence and facing healing, we discover resilience woven through our very being, a quiet strength that carries us through uncertainty to peace. There once was a monk who traveled from village to village, sharing stories of the heart. In one town, he met a man broken by grief, unable to let go of a lost loved one. The man asked, "How can I heal when my pain feels endless?" The monk smiled gently and said, "Imagine a flame flickering in the wind. To protect it, you cup your hands around it. But the tighter you hold, the more it struggles." Sometimes healing comes not from grasping harder, but from opening your hands and letting the breeze flow. He told the man about Anicca, the teaching of impermanence, that everything arises and passes away. Holding on to pain is like trying to hold water in your hands. But if you let it flow, it will cleanse rather than drown. The man listened and slowly learned to sit with his sorrow, not fight it. Over time, the flame of his heart steadied. A proverb went softly between them, "This too shall pass." Healing is not forgetting, but embracing the flow, welcoming pain as a visitor, allowing it to teach, then releasing it with grace. In facing impermanence, we find not loss, but liberation. There was once a young woman burdened by regrets from her past. She felt trapped in a cycle of guilt and shame, unable to move forward. One day she visited a quiet temple where an old monk greeted her with warmth and kindness. "Tell me your story," he invited. She poured out her sorrows, expecting judgment but finding only patience. The monk then shared a parable. A river flows constantly, sometimes clear, sometimes muddied by storms. Yet it never stops moving forward. The river does not fight the obstacles, but embraces them, allowing them to pass. He spoke of mindful acceptance, a Buddhist practice of observing thoughts without attachment. Healing begins when you stop resisting your pain and start welcoming it as part of your journey. The woman realized that by releasing her self-condemnation and embracing impermanence, she could find peace. An old saying echoed softly, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." In facing healing, she learned that brokenness is not the end, but a doorway to transformation. In a quiet monastery, a young novice struggled with impatience. He wanted immediate relief from his worries, quick answers to his fears. One evening, the elder master spoke softly. "Healing is like tending a garden. You cannot rush the growth of flowers by pulling at their stems. You must nurture the soil, water the roots, and wait." The novice asked, "But how do I endure the waiting?" The master smiled gently. "By understanding that impermanence means all things change, our pain, our joy, our fears. When we face healing with patience, we align ourselves with the natural rhythm of life." He shared a Buddhist teaching. Just as waves rise and fall on the ocean, so do feelings come and go. We suffer when we cling to the wave, but peace comes when we watch it pass. The novice learned to breathe deeply, observe his feelings without judgment, and let time do its quiet work. An old proverb lingered in the air. "Patience is a bitter plant, but its fruit is sweet." Healing is not a destination, but a journey of small steps, taken with kindness and trust. There once was a fisherman who, after a fierce storm, found his net torn and empty. The loss was great, and his heart heavy with despair. Sitting by the shore, he watched the tides ebb and flow, and a thought came to him. Like the sea, life changes constantly. Holding tightly only leads to sorrow. He remembered a teaching from the Buddha. Attachment is the cause of suffering, and by releasing it, one finds freedom. The fisherman mended his net patiently, and waited for the next catch, understanding that setbacks are part of the voyage. A saying from old lands drifted through his mind: "The lotus grows most beautifully from the deepest and thickest mud." In facing loss and healing from pain, we discover the strength to rise again, transformed and renewed. A wise elder once told of a traveler lost in a dense forest, overwhelmed by shadows of fear and doubt. The traveler wished to escape the darkness, to find a clear path to peace. The elder said, "The forest itself is impermanent. Trees fall, seasons change, and light breaks through the canopy." He explained that facing one's fears is like stepping into the forest, acknowledging the shadows without running. Through this, healing begins. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering arises from clinging to what cannot last. To release is to awaken. An ancient proverb says, "Even the tallest tree begins as a seed." With courage to face impermanence, the traveler found the strength to walk forward, one step at a time, toward the light. In a small village, a young boy asked his grandmother why people suffer and how they can find peace. She told him a story of a bamboo stalk that bends with the wind instead of breaking. "Life will test you with storms," she said, "but like bamboo, resilience comes from flexibility and acceptance." She spoke of the Buddhist principle of non-attachment, learning to hold life's moments lightly, without grasping too tightly. This openness creates space for healing and growth. The boy learned that pain is not a prison, but a teacher guiding us to deeper understanding. A timeless saying echoed softly: "A gem cannot be polished without friction." In embracing impermanence and facing healing, we find the strength to stand tall through life's changing winds. This is the final chapter. A traveler once found himself trapped in a labyrinth of his own fears and regrets. Desperate, he sought a wise hermit rumored to possess the key to freedom. The hermit simply smiled and said, "The labyrinth exists because you cling to its walls. To escape, face the fear that builds them." The traveler closed his eyes and faced his pain without denial. Slowly the walls dissolved, revealing a vast open field beneath a clear sky. The hermit shared a teaching from the Buddha: when we recognize the impermanence of all things, we no longer fear loss. This recognition opens the door to true healing. A proverb lingered: "No rain, no rainbow." Healing is not escaping impermanence, but embracing it, transforming pain into wisdom and fear into peace. With a calm heart, the traveler stepped forward, ready to live anew.